Hello everybody, my name is Beck. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back to my channel. So if this is the very first video you're seeing of mine, my voice don't usually sound like this. I think it's finally getting there, but I did have like a minor incident yesterday, so my throat is quite swollen and it hurts a little bit, but I spent majority of the day not really talking, so it's like healing and I've been taking medication. If you follow me on Twitter, you already know the reason why I did ER yesterday, which is the emergency room. I am filming the day after. It hasn't even been a full 24 hours yet, but I promised that I'll film this video because I wanted to share my experience with everyone. I even wrote notes, recorded my journey through this. So if you're wondering why I went to the ER, is because on Saturday night around 8 p.m, so it'll be 3 days ago or 4 days ago now, I accidentally swallowed a fish bone, and I didn't think too much of it at that time. I thought if I just drank a lot of water or just eat a whole bunch of food, I'll be fine. It will eventually go down to my throat. And my mum told me that it's probably a sensation that's left over because it's probably scratched my throat and it's probably down by now. For a short while it did dissipate and I couldn't feel it, so I assumed that all the food that I consumed, like I drank soft drinks because I heard someone said carbonated stuff makes it go down. I don't even really like carbonated stuff to begin with, but I did it anyway because I was desperate at that point. I drank salt water, I had olive oil, I ate nuts. I did everything that the internet told me to do in order for the fish bone to just go down my throat, and basically nothing worked. And it was a very traumatic experience. But once I couldn't feel the sensation too much, I went to sleep. You shouldn't do that. You should really go to the emergency room if you still have that feeling in your throat. But I just assumed that it was fine. I woke up the next day, which was Sunday morning, and it was still there. There was no way of denying it. You just know when something doesn't feel right and it's in the back of your throat. And I immediately booked an appointment at the GP, which is a general practitioner, because I didn't think of it as something so dire that I need to go to the ER just yet. Up to this point, I've been like eating like so many different types of food just to push it down, and it still wouldn't go down. Entirely too paranoid. I was scared, but not to the point of not being unreasonable, but I still went to the GP. He looked at my throat. He only pushed down with a paddle pop on my tongue. He had a quick look. He told me to say and I did, and he said he couldn't find anything, but he ordered me to do an x-ray anyway. So I went to do the x-ray, and I was like explaining the situation to the staff, and she was like, yeah, it's fine, don't worry, like it happens to a lot of people, like it's a very common thing, like don't worry about it. So I had the x-ray done. He's not a specialist in x-ray, if I'm being completely honest. He did say that up front. He's just a general practitioner, so he's just a family doctor, so he doesn't specialize in it. And because the person who writes the report wasn't there, so I had to wait like a full 24 hours before I can get the results. I had to wait an additional day to get the results from it, and anyway, that's not the point. So I go to do the x-ray. He goes in, he has a look at the x-rays. He just does a quick glance and looks at my throat to see if I don't have pictures, but I'm just generally telling you what I did. But I did post pics of it on Twitter, some of it, because I'm in an institution that you're not supposed to be taking pictures anyway. It's a place for people to get treatment, not like a photo shoot kind of area. So I get that done. He looks at x-ray, can't find anything, there's no bones in it, but I can still feel it. And he was like, if you are still concerned about it, I think it's most likely washed down your throat by now. Don't worry about it, but if you are worried about it, go to the hospital, go to the ER and get it checked. And so I went home like with, you know, some comfort in knowing that it could possibly have been flushed down my throat, but I could feel it. And it was a way of like kind of brainwashing myself, believing that it was like no big deal, like everything's fine, like I don't have to worry about this. It's okay. If the doctor said it's most likely down my throat, and I'm just like feeling the scratches. It does happen. I'm not saying that happens. It doesn't happen. In fact, it is very common. That's what usually people feel, but for the life of me, I just felt the stabbing sensation because it wouldn't be there all the time. It'll come and go. So it made me think that there is no way, because if you have been scratched, you can kind of almost constantly feel the scratches, like it's sore, like it is right now, because I did get scratched and I'm sore, but I'm still able to function. Like, it feels so much better once it's gone. You just know when something foreign is in your throat, then there's no denying it. You can try to convince yourself otherwise, but still there. But anyway, that was the first GP that I went in for the x-ray on Sunday. And then on Monday, I woke up and the pain was even worse by now. It was very, very apparent that there was something stuck in my throat. And I booked at the same clinic but a different doctor because the guy from the day before, like the doctor, wasn't in, so I just chose a different doctor. And I straight up told her, I feel the bone underneath my tongue because it went in that way. I'm pretty sure it scratched my tongue when it went down my tongue and through that way to the pipe down my throat. And she dug around with a paddle pop stick for a while, and then she told me she could see it. And then she told me to go to the nurse's room, and she brought out like instruments, like a little metal tweezer like you see at the dentist, but I don't think it was long enough because you could tell, because I had an assumption that it was really far back my throat. That's why she couldn't reach it. But I also know that she didn't want to scare me because it's already been like the third day at this point, and I really don't want her to go to the emergency room for something so stupid. But I later found out it wasn't. It was actually an emergency. So she goes to the nurse's room. She sits me back at a chair. She has like a couple of lights, kind of like a ring light I have, and then shines it in my mouth. I'm sitting upright like this, tilt my head back, and she's telling me to say ah. And she has a paddle pop stick like push down my tongue and trying to take it out. There was like 2 other nurses on the side trying to help her. And after like, oh yeah, she also gave me a sick bag just in case I have like a very bad gag reflex. Just in case I end up throwing up, I have a bag. They were ready for it. Like, after trying 5 or 6 times, and I'm like trying to persevere and open my mouth and be as strong as possible for them to take out the fishbone, she was like, I can't do it. We don't have the right equipment to take it out. So I go back to her office and she writes me up like a letter of recommendation, or I don't know what exactly it's called, but she writes me up a letter and she's like, so which hospital would you like to go to, because I can't take it out and the hospital will have the equipment and the manpower to do it. And she recommended me a hospital that had like a ENT specialist, which is like specifically for the ears, I think ears, nose and throat doctor, but it was a little bit further away. So she wrote me a letter anyway. What ended up happening, I went to my closest hospital and hoped there was someone that could help me. So I go in, I tell the front desk nurses about my situation. I get hooked up to like a heart monitor of some sorts to see my blood pressure, and I update my details because I haven't been to the hospital for a very long time. I have no reason to go there. Like, let's be real, why would you want to go to the hospital? Anyway, so I was in the waiting room for like 5-10 minutes and then I got called in again. And this time I think it was an intern because she was wearing a green shirt. I don't know, there was like various colors, and I'm just suspecting one's an intern, one's a resident, and one's like a senior doctor or something like that. I had a feeling that's the order it goes, so I think I got an intern or a resident, and she did what the GP did. So this doctor, she used a paddle pop stick, she pushed down my tongue and she looked around for the fishbone and she couldn't see it. She was like, I can't see it. And then she takes me to a different room. I sat there for like 5-10 minutes, and then another doctor comes in and he's like, okay, so what we're gonna do is you have to drink this pink liquid. It tastes disgusting, blah blah blah. It's basically like it will numb the regions in your mouth, and you have to gargle in the back of your throat so you don't have like a gag reflex when we put instruments in your mouth, to take a better look at your throat. And I'm like, oh, you know what, whatever, to get this like sorted as soon as possible. So I take the pink liquid. I don't know what it's called, but I just do as I'm told. He told me to gargle as long as I can. Most people can last for 30 seconds, but the best is if you can last for a minute. So I take in the fluids and I gargle and I swallow a little bit by mistake, but he said it was fine. It doesn't harm me, it doesn't benefit me. It's like kind of like, anyway, so I do that and then I spit it out into the plastic bag, the same bag that I got from the doctor's office. And I sit back down, I wait for them to come in, and they make me sit down. They put the instrument in my mouth. It's basically a large metal kind of, I don't know, a metal board of some sort with a curve that's shaped to slide into your throat, and they push it way back. And naturally I couldn't stand it, and the first doctor, the initial female doctor that saw me with the paddle pop stick, did it first. And then the guy that gave me the pink fluid did it second, and then like a random, I think more senior doctor came in to try and do it, because both of them couldn't really see what was going on. So I guess they were all taking turns to see if they could spot it, because it was actually far back into my throat, so it was really hard to see, unless I guess if you specialize in throat you wouldn't be able to see it. So they all took turns, they put in that instrument in. It was very unpleasant, okay? It was large, he was using pressure, and it was just like constantly pushing and telling me to like relax and not to move, and I'm too scared to move at this point, because I don't know, it's inside my throat and it's large. And I'm like, I'm trying to stay still and try not to gag. It was like, if you want to gag or want to throw up, like put your hand up, and I constantly shot my hand out because I couldn't do it. Like for most part I have very high pain tolerance, but I have a very bad gag reflex, so I could not do it at all. Even with the medication to numb my areas, like basic anesthesia to kind of like numb the area so they can do the job, it didn't work on me. It numbed my mouth and my tongue, but it didn't, like, I drank it a little bit by mistake, so clearly it hit my throat, but it still didn't work. And at this point, after doing it for so many times, they basically told me that they can't see anything, and most likely it would have been gone by now. And I'm glad my dad kind of stepped in and said something along the lines of, yeah, because my parents went with me, they witnessed it all. My mom was laughing through the whole way and I was panicking. My dad was like, what's wrong with you? They eventually got thrown out of the doctor's area for disturbing me, but anyway, that's a different story. So I went in, so my dad went in and has a talk with another female doctor that happened to be Chinese, so they could communicate, and he was like, there is no way, if she's saying there's something in her throat and she can feel it, then it's not out yet. That's not a scratch. And the female doctor was like, well, the GP can be wrong, because my dad was like, if the GP can find it, and my mom was like, yeah, if the GP can find it, because my mom went in to witness it, my dad was outside, but both of them were like, if the GP can find it, then clearly it's still in there. This, like, the chances of her pushing it is kind of rare because it's so far back, like, and she couldn't even reach it. I think it's still there, and I could feel it, and I thought it was still there, but I was having second doubts, because when you have like 3 medical professionals and the one from before, like I went to the GP and then the 3 doctors that were trying to do the whole procedure in my mouth, and they all told me that they could not see anything, and then it's most likely a scratch, and I'm being like, I'm probably feeling like the scratches and the residues from it, but there was no way. I knew there was something there, but I was causing doubt, because when you have someone who is in the medical profession and is telling you like this kind of information, you kind of doubt yourself. But if it wasn't for the second GP that found the bone and told me that I had to go to the hospital to get it taken out, I don't think I would have had the confidence. So what ended up happening, I had to wait for a ENT so he could do a nasal endoscopy on my nose, which means that a specialized doctor would have to put a camera up my nose on this one and down my throat to see my entire throat. And if that still doesn't work, then I would have to do a CT scan, which is a CAT scan. And every single doctor that had mentioned this earlier told me that they would advise me not to do it because it has a high amount of radiation, and I'm apparently too young to go through something like this when it's like so unnecessary. So they told me that doing that nasal examination would be so much better for me. But I want you to think about having an actual camera up your nose and down here, like how scary it sounds. But everyone told me, because my mom has previously done it before, and she was like, oh, it's nothing, you won't, it'll feel uncomfortable, but it's not painful. So I had to go back to the waiting room, and I sat there for an hour and a half with my parents waiting for the nose specialist to come back down from, because he was doing a surgery. So I was waiting for him to be done so he can do something as stupid as taking a stupid fish bone out of my throat. So he finally comes down, he greets me, he is very welcoming. I felt very safe with him. I think out of all the doctors I've seen that day, like, I've been worn out at that point. I've been sprayed general anesthetics. I've been sprayed anesthetics in my nose, my mouth. I've drank like liquids. I've been pushed down with paddle pops. Metal stuff has gone in my mouth. Like I've had it. Like Monday was an experience in itself. Like yesterday was a lot. And he greets me. He tells me to open my mouth. I sit down, open my mouth and show him, and he flashes a torchlight and he goes, oh yeah, I see it, like within seconds. Like all the other doctors had to put so much other stuff in my throat and make me drink all sorts of stuff, and they couldn't see it, and they all told me that it's most likely gone. And he was the only one that managed to shine a light into my throat and tell me that was there, and I wasn't crazy for believing the fishbone was still there. And I'm so glad I waited for him, even though it was not exactly what I wanted, having a camera shoved down my nose later on. Actually, he didn't even do that. He actually just told me to open my mouth first. He saw the bone. The first time he tried to like take it out, it was not successful, and he told me to like sit up straight and proper and face him. And the second time around, he got it out. It did sting a little when he tapped on it to try to pull out the first time, because I guess it's in an awkward position and it's way back down my throat. And he basically told me that if he can't take it, if he has trouble taking it out right now, then I have to go upstairs where the surgery is and take it out that way, like go under general anesthesia, knocked out, and treat it as a surgery to take it out. And I really trust, for a fish bone, you have to understand, for a fish bone, I'm going through all this trouble. And do you know how much of a sign of relief when he was like, yeah, I got it. And you can feel the instant relief once the fishbone is out of your throat, or any foreign object is out of your throat. I was like, I could cry at that point. It was a lot. It's been 3 days at that point. And I thought I didn't have to do the endoscopy, the nasal one, but he was like, I still have to do it just in case there's other bones left over. And he puts it in. It was strange. He did spray me first in both of my noses and in my mouth. I had to swallow the anesthesia. It was bitter and it wasn't great, but I gotta like power through it and get it done. And he did that, puts it in, goes in my mouth. I could feel it only here. I couldn't feel it down my throat. And he had a look. He was like, yep, it's good. His assistant had a second look. It was also good. So they both approved it. I had to puff up my cheeks and then push it down, like breathe through my nose, and he's telling me to do all sorts of stuff. It wasn't just like he puts it in and you do nothing. You have to follow the instructions. But anyway, this whole ordeal lasted for like from 2 p.m, like 2:30 p.m, up to like almost 7 o'clock. I wait for the anesthesia to wear off, and which was like additional 2 hours, and then I could eat, because I haven't been eating properly for the last couple of days. And I was a little bit snappy on all my social media, so if you didn't leave me a nice comment, I would have snapped at you, and I feel like I was justified. So if you were like leaving me laughing emojis or telling me how stupid I was, or if you said like LOL, only you would go through something like this, screw all of you. If I have blocked you, because I feel like I've been through a lot, even though like, I didn't realize that I would have had to go through surgery if it was just a couple of centimeters further back down. Like, it was that bad. But yeah, it was an experience. So if you ever want to eat fish again, take into the consideration you might choke if you don't chew properly, so pay attention when you eat. And yeah, it was a mood. That's my story time. And it's an experience that I never want to go through again. Please leave me a like and leave a comment down below, and hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content from me. I don't know when I'll be posting next because I have to get my wisdom teeth out on Friday, so it's never ending for me. But I'm glad it's over. I'm glad I'm alive to tell you the story. But when you're eating, just be careful because you don't know where you might end it up, because I would have had to pay $250 to $300 just to do the endoscopy on my nose. But since I live in Australia, I'm very blessed that this emergency visit and all the doctor's visits are free because of the taxes I pay, and it's coming back to me. So I'm glad I got to benefit it, but this is so dumb. Just be careful when you eat. So I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye! I don't usually film from this angle, but I forgot to mention, because people keep asking me about the size of the fish. Oh my god, look at my eyebrows. They're like caterpillars. I just threw this on. Look at... oh my god. Anyway, it looks like I got punched in the eye. But anyway... people asked me what the size of the fish bone was and how it looked like. I wanted to take a picture, but I didn't want to be weird with the GP. It's like my eyeliner is rubbing out. But anyway, it was T-shaped. So imagine like a price tag. Sometimes you have like a tag that is kind of like a bone shape. So the T, the letter, like this part was embedded into the throat, and it was, and the long stroke like this one was sticking out that way. So that's how the fish bones look like. This is the best way I could describe it. And it had like spikes on the side of the T. So if you ever look at the fish, and sometimes it has like the T shape, has little spikes on the side, and it was embedded deep on the left side of my throat, and that's why it hurt when I swallowed. But I could still eat because nothing can stop me. So yeah. And another snippet is, once the doctor pulled it out, he asked if I wanted to keep it, and my dad was like, "No, it's a present for you. Thanks for all the hard work." So yeah. Oh, it doesn't hurt that much, but it does ache a little bit because it's a wound essentially on my throat. So I have to be careful. I have to treat it like I got my wisdom teeth pulled all over again. So I have to be careful what I eat. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Yeah, and another snippet is usually the ENT is not available in the hospital I went to, so he happened to be doing surgery that day at that particular time. I bumped into him. If it wasn't for him, I would still have the fish bone in my mouth because the other doctors couldn't get it out. So I am unlucky in the sense that it got stuck in my throat, but at the same time, I'm so grateful that he was there to take it out. I mean, I waited a couple of hours for it. Like, it could have been over ages ago, but I'm just glad it's over. So yeah.